Hey everyone, welcome back to Check the Kick podcast from Sherdog Network. You can find us on Sherdog.com. Pretty dope website, if I could say so myself. Today I have a special guest on, Greg. I'm glad you're here, bro. How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
We have only a couple fights to talk about from the previous weekend, but we're going to talk about a little bit more of this upcoming UFC card. A little bit of leftovers, though, a bunch of really cool performances. We're not going to talk about all these fights, but like Damon Blackshear got a twister. He was the third person to get a twister in the UFC. That is pretty cool. Marcus McGee gets that big knockout over JP Buys. Isaac Dolgarian looked really, really good. He was awesome. Yasmin Lucindo got that submission win over Polyana Viena. Congratulations to all those people. All those fights were dope, but we need to talk about two of them. And the first one I want to talk about is Khalil Rountree versus Chris Daukaus. Khalil Rountree stops Chris Daukaus at 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the first round. And even though Daukaus was coming off of 4 finish losses, he was coming down to try his hand at light heavyweight. Unfortunately, he got matched up pretty harshly against a big power puncher in Khalil Rountree. Do you think there would have been a different result in this fight if Daukaus had just stopped trying to fight at heavyweight, like after maybe Derek Lewis?
Do I think this particular fight would have?
Yeah, like do you think it would have been turned out different if he didn't get knocked out 4 times in a row? If maybe he got knocked out like once or twice and decided to come down?
Potentially it could have. Yeah, I think with Rountree, though, he's got that kind of power. So if it was a culmination of these previous knockouts, yeah, it might have been had a little bit more chin. But also, I don't think dropping weight helped his chin necessarily either.
Typically, I would agree with you when it comes to stuff like that. But in his situation, I think his body weight and his cutting weight was less of a brain water and just more of, like I think, yeah, more of like a love handle weight loss. Yeah. So Khalil Rountree, I really like what he was doing in this fight. He came out in his typical Muay Thai stance. Ever since he got, knocked out by Johnny Walker, he went over to Thailand and really, really, he was vicious before that, and he was a Muay Thai striker, but he really, really, really started leaning on those skills, as we saw like in the Eric Anders fight, even with just Dustin Jacoby. His previous opponent, I think Jacoby beat him, but still, regardless, Jacoby, very, very high-level kickboxer himself. And Rountree kind of just did everything right in this fight. He was parrying and hand fighting with his lead hand and trying to set up that counter left. Daukaus was blitzing like he always does. And it looked like Khalil was kind of trying to pull him onto a counter in one of those blitzes, but eventually just said, screw it. Let me just throw one down the pipe, and kind of crushed him. What did you think?
Well, I thought it was, the timing was impeccable, right? And I think it was almost like it was a Daukaus splits, like the same one that there'd probably been 3 previous at that point in the fight. And Khalil, held his ground basically on those defending. And then it's almost like Daukaus kind of let off and, to reset after the blitz. And that's when he just jumped right on him. It was like he caught him by surprise. The timing, I thought, was perfect.
A weird momentary lapse where, again, there was just a weird, I wouldn't say it wasn't a pause in the action or anything, but just a reset where Daukaus just kind of, took his eye off the ball for 1 second. And as someone as explosive and as powerful as Khalil is going to fire that shot. And when he hits people, they get hurt. And his ground and pound is like Khalil Rountree's ground and pound. If you're hurt in front of him on the ground, whether it be a soccer kick to the ribs or legs or violent overhands, those couple extra follow-up shots weren't necessary. Daukaus' head bounced off the concrete, and I think it was Herb. Like, dude, the way he slid in to save Dustin Poirier was like top notch. And then on this fight, it's just like,
I feel collectively the last couple of weeks though they've been a little bit more on top of it. Generally speaking, collectively, I think. But that was one where, he could have spared him. Everyone knew what the outcome was.
Yeah, especially, and Daukaus did fine. Like, he was landing on Khalil. Like we were speaking before we started recording, you mentioned that, he was throwing 2 and 3 punch combinations, and his third punch was landing. Khalil was definitely, kind of just keeping his guard up and rolling with shots, and he's pretty defensively sound. And Khalil is a guy that has, so much experience at this point where, like, you're not going to get him frazzled and worried, as a lot of these heavyweights that he was fighting were just people that were not as experienced as someone like Khalil Rountree, someone that, those other guys may panic under fire, someone that's moving fast in front of them, but Rountree's not going to be, you're not going to impose that on him. Like, having just fast blitzes is not going to be enough to get someone like Rountree off his striking game. And he didn't even throw a ton of kicks in this fight. Mm-hmm. I figured he may try to, chop his legs up. Daukaus did try to clash the pocket and clash into the pocket with combos, and then, try to get a body lock and hold them against the cage. And Rountree just appeared to be too strong and shucked off that one, grappling attempt from him as well.
Yeah, I thought it was he looked good. I thought it was a good performance. He was clearly, very dangerous. Got to show some of that. Fast fight, you don't get to see a lot of it, but from what we saw, it was explosive. And one thing I wanted to add, a lot of these post-fight interviews, I paid attention to them, and there was talk about Rountree, kind of getting a renewed sense of focus. And do you know anything about that specifically, Dev? Or
he's had a lot of I don't want to say like mental health issues, but he's always been a guy that head case isn't the proper word to use, but he's always been one of those guys where he is, a
little distracted, lack of focus.
Yeah, a little distracted, lack of focus, and maybe not all the way believing in themselves at times, and can get discouraged when faced with adversity. Like, he's had moments like that, but he called for a main event. Mm-hmm. He's down in Vegas, so why not just give him like an Apex main event against Nikita Krylov? Mm-hmm. That's a step up in the rankings. He wants to step up. Nikita's fought everybody. Nikita's going to be that dude that tests his grappling. He hasn't fought really anyone that wants to grapple him since Ion Cutelaba took him down and TKO'd him. So, and if that's all we get with Khalil Rountree, I'm okay with that. Like, if he goes on a 3-4 fight win streak and 2-3 of those fights are via finish, and then he fights a wrestler, he gets finished himself, and he has to kind of, get back in line. If that's all he's going to be, it's going to be fun. Because
he's 33, right?
I believe so. Like, now's the time for him.
No, that's where I was going with it. Now is the time. I like lining him up. I like your plan.
Yeah, just get, and for Nikita Krylov, like, beating like someone like Khalil Rountree that's a good win.
Right.
And if he can figure out a way to avoid that wrestling, he avoided Daukaus, and that's usually been like where Khalil's been the weakest. We can definitely give him a chance to see what he's made of. Good performance all in all. I believe he did earn $50K for that. The next guy we're going to talk about didn't earn $50K, but I think he had the most, I know, crazy. He had like the most flawless victory of the night, in my opinion. Terrance McKinney wins by pretty violent first round knockout. Great fight by Terrance. He kind of took a lot of risks here, and Mike Breeden wasn't a guy that came in with some incredible like winning record into the UFC or anything like that, but still a tough guy. Terrance McKinney took this fight on short notice after losing, after getting finished. He didn't, get like TKO brain damage finish from, Sadiakov, but he did come in on a couple weeks notice, made the weight, won the fight, and did it all perfectly. Technically, what do you think he did right? Because I think he did a lot of stuff right.
putting his foot on the gas to start was impressive. He didn't give Breeden a chance to even breathe, really. His striking was on point. The body shot that hurt him, I think, was in hindsight, the beginning of the end. It clearly hurt him. I'll just cut to it. My favorite part of the fight was when he had Breeden hurt and he shot for a single leg, the old desperation single leg when you're hurt. There was a little bit of, they hit the ground, they scrambled a bit, and then McKinney stood him up, like literally lifted him up in the clinch and backed him up to the fence to keep him standing, and then finished him. I thought that was incredible. Oftentimes you'd stay on the ground, especially in the position of dominance that he had, the position of control that he'd gotten himself into. But instead he opted to stand him up, like physically stand him up, not let him stand up to finish him. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, his body punching was great. He hurt Breeden to the body. He was, Terrance is a guy that's capable of throwing those super athletic jump knees. He's one of those guys where he has the thing that Conor McGregor had and a lot of these other fast starting fighters where however his warm-ups are in the back, and it's probably just him, but he's one of those guys that ready to go, and he's found his range right away. It takes Terrance one jab to know his range, and once he finds his range, he's just a guy that's really, really, really tough to deal with. His speed, his shot selection was really good here, going to the body multiple times, kicking the body. He's throwing tons of head kicks. He throws a really good fast southpaw head kick. And even if all that stuff isn't always landing flush, it's just flooding, your opponents just flooding their brain and giving them too much to think about. And when someone's as fast as Terrance, with that many different tools, he can, throw something here, throw something there. And that's kind of like, that's kind of what John Jones used to do when he was coming up. He had, just a plethora of different offensive tools where you throw an oblique kick, a body kick, a jab, and just so many different things to think of. Terrance kind of can do the same thing. He's not John Jones, of course. He's Terrance McKinney. But just that similar, array of offense. And he's so fast. Like, Terrance is a bolt of lightning.
He showed him everything. He hurt him, I think, with the body, and then he just had too much to worry about. And Breeden was defending that body shot. If you notice, it left his head open, and then Terrance, hit him a couple times. I thought it was great.
Yeah, and Terrance is going to be a guy where he's – I'll need to ask him this, but I believe he's down in Texas now with Kevin Holland. I know him and Kevin Holland are pretty close buddies, and he definitely took a page of the Kevin Holland book where, lose a fight that you might have had some success in that was winnable for you, get finished or get losing away, and then turn around and come back and just blow the doors off the place. That's what makes you have fans too. If you can just show up, make the weight, win in impressive fashion, like that's why Terrance got the call.
Yeah.
And if he can stay ready and make the weight like that and perform like that, shit, line him up. I think that he is capable of. Look at Matt Frevola. He sparked Matt Frevola. That's the fastest knockout in UFC lightweight history. Matt Frevola is a top 15 dude. I think Terrance is definitely athletically capable of being a top 5 fighter. He has all the tools. I think once he gets his mental to 1,000%, I think he can definitely shoot himself up the rankings. But until then, what do you think he should do next? Like, who do you think he should fight? What do you think is next for Terrance McKinney?
I think your point about the availability is a great ability to have, right? And the fact that they can pull him into fights, like Kevin Holland has, he's been available and he gets a call a lot, and he's made a lot of money and he's gotten in a lot of fights. I think to your point about the fans, they recognize him, right? They enjoy him. They don't really win or loss. Their fans are excited to see him fight. I think for McKinney, I don't have a name lined up. Interesting in the division, are they using him? Would they start using? You seem to think that he's got they want to maybe move him up, right, and have him fight someone, top 15, top 10? What are you thinking?
I think they should give him another fight, or even maybe two, before they start pushing him back up the rankings. Because I mean, he's fought Drew Dober, unfortunately got finished by Drew Dober, but had tons of moments and almost finished Drew Dober multiple times.
Right.
Drew Dober was around there. He does have that knockout against Frivola, but I think someone like Jared Gordon would be a really tough test for him.
Respectable, yeah.
Someone like that, where like they're fringe top 15, just outside, give them like a win or two. Because if you look at the UFC lightweight rankings, like they're pretty, like a lot of these divisions are just pretty stacked. Do you think he should maybe fight someone outside the rankings? Do you think, what do you?
I think so. I mean, I think, lose a fight, win a fight. Well, I don't think they should be in a rush to move him back up. That said, give him someone respectable and definitely keep an eye on him. I think he's got the potential, but I think this might be also switching camps, or at least working out in Texas now. That might take a fight or two to really kick in, and we might see a significant change in him, right?
Sure.
And this might be a huge point of growth. So I think you keep that in mind, but I guess where I'm coming from is I wouldn't be in a rush to have him fight, to really push him too fast right now. Maybe get another fight or two in and then see how that goes.
Sure.
But he's fun to watch. Every time I see his name on the card, I'm excited about it. Like his style, like to see what he brings. He's got all the tools.
I went and pulled these are the UFC rankings, not Sherdog, because Sherdog may incorporate other companies, for lack of better terms. But Diego Ferreira is ranked the 15, this per the UFC rankings. He just had that win, that crazy knockout over Johnson. That would be an acceptable top 15 opponent for him, but I still think shooting him in there with someone like Jared Gordon,
right,
just to just to get his feet wet one more time. And Jared Gordon's tough as fuck. He's good everywhere, but he's also not a crazy big dangerous knockout threat. So if you're a Terrance McKinney fan, that's probably what you're thinking. And then maybe, work him slowly up, because if I think about him and someone like a striking match between him and like Renato Moicano, and I think that could be interesting and fun. Any last words on that one?
No, it was great to see him on a quick turnaround show out like that. And I think that's great for him too, to have to become unorthodox and have a chance to really make a statement that soon after. I think it's got to be great for him. And hopefully there's more to come.
Yeah, we're fans of Terrance here on this show. So shout out to Terrance. Shout out to all the winners from that weekend. Pretty fun card. I almost went fishing instead. Glad I stayed around. You guys have all made it to the second segment of the show called What's Hot. And you're going to be listening to this maybe later in the week, but August 15th is when this show will drop. That's Tuesday. So if you guys listen to it then, it'll be maybe week-old news, but the UFC antitrust has gone through. I think there's like 1,200 fighters that are part of this lawsuit against the UFC over basically shady contractual obligations and shady dealings. You look back to like Mark Hunt, and we all know the history of the UFC. Do you think this is going to really impact things?
I think it could be huge. And I think, there's a few things. Obviously, the fighter pay is a huge part of this. And as part of the class action, they're seeking, I think, up to about $1 billion in pay to be distributed amongst those fighters. which is a lot of money. Also, contract length is one of the topics, and seeking injunction relief. Now, this is huge because they're actually going to try to change the way the UFC does business, specifically in shortening the contracts to, I believe, 2 years is what they were talking about. You know, part of this, Dev, I think the UFC has grown, you know, in a short amount of time, it's grown very quickly. All of the professional sports have, you know, they have they're organized. They have like a, you know, players union, and the UFC
There's no fighters union.
There's no fighters union. So they don't have, and that's exactly the type of things that, you know, a union negotiates, right? And that's why this is a extremely important point in time for the fighters and the UFC. And I think especially earlier this year when they talked about how profitable the UFC was, I think netting like over 500 million this year. You know, from the outside, a lot of the other sports where there is a players union, you know, those sports like I believe football, NBA and NFL, I just have a note here, like 50% of the revenue goes to the athletes, but in the UFC it's 20%.
Less than that, I believe, even. Yeah,
so the rest of that money goes to the bottom, goes to the old bank account. But that's, you know, when the fighters, you know, want and, you know, deserve more than that. And it's, this is how this things work, you know?
Yeah, the revenue split for fighters just downright fucking sucks. When it comes to the politics in MMA, sometimes I side with the UFC and sometimes I don't. But just generally speaking, like if they were to give up 2% of their earnings, like that could change a lot of people's lives. When you're making $1 billion, billions of dollars, if giving up another 2% would even make an impact. I think they should be giving up more than that when it comes to, you know, fair revenue splits. But, you know, at the same time, for the fighters, you just have to almost like know the game that you're playing and know who you're doing business with when it comes to doing business with the UFC. It's weird, you know, there are fighters that like look at someone like Conor or fighters like Ronda, you know, blah, blah, blah. But then you got dudes like Sean Strickland who they don't complain about fighter pay, but Sean Strickland, a guy like him that, you know, is probably, even though he's fighting for a belt, he'll probably never be a world champion. He fights on, you know, short notice, can main event anytime they want. Like, what is his revenue split looking like? Like, what are his kickbacks looking like? He seems to be a guy that actually gets treated well by the UFC, but still, you know, and then also you got all these guys and gals that get handcuffed to their contracts. And that's another big part of the issue that they're fighting for, where, you know, Derek Lewis, what is it, like an 8-fight deal he just signed at like almost 40 years old? He's not going to fight out that contract with the UFC. Like, and he's handcuffed. He won't be able to compete in another combat sport until he fights that contract out.
I like the idea of 2-year contracts for the fighters. If there's
just fucking re-sign.
Well,
right?
I think it does. Well, then they have other options, right? If there's another promotion that they want to fight, if there's another opportunity, the window for fighters in their peak is very short, right? You get to a point of experience, and you have that experience and the athleticism, and your window is extremely short. So if you're locked into something for 4 years, you know, some of these cases it's like 5 years, 6 years. That could be your entire career, right? And if you're not fighting as much as you want to, or, you know, there's other reasons, that's it. And the other thing too is, so you're in a big contract. You know, you mentioned Derek Lewis. He wasn't looking too good until his last fight of his contract, and then he rolls in with a 6-pack. And good on him, but what would that look like if you had a 2-year contract? Would every fight matter more? Do you know what I'm saying?
It would definitely. a lot more of these fighters, I think, would be playing hot potato in between organizations if there was just 2-year contracts. So like somebody might get a belt here or, contend here and then just dip out. And worldwide MMA rankings, I think, would definitely shift because the UFC might not hold all the best athletes if 2-year contracts went out. And you're talking about, when you were talking about a fighter's, longevity and their peak, like when they're peaking in performance, fighting is just such a mother effort where, you will work so hard. And how many of these fighters train? How long do they train for before they reach their physical prime and peaking performance? And then how fast do they decline? Like when shit starts to suck for them, like it starts to suck and it starts to suck bad. Prime example, Chuck Liddell. Dude is on top of the world. Once his chin was gone, tons of violent losses over and over and over again. And your decline is way faster than your incline as a professional MMA fighter. And your peak of performance time is not very long. Your prime, as they would say. And it's different for all athletes. It's different for all their weight classes. But yeah, it's fickle.
Athletes in other sports, get paid for an entire season too. In MMA, they may only fight sometimes because of injury or whatever. They may only have earning opportunities once a year, a couple times a year.
Yeah, or what if you are like, we were talking about Khalil Rountree. Remember when he oblique kicked Modestas Bukauskas and he inverted he hyperextended his knee backward? Like how long, like at that point you need to, you can't even work if you're stuck in a bed for 6 months or however long.
I think of all the sports and for what these athletes put on the line, they deserve to be compensated to live a decent life.
No sport is harder than MMA.
No sport is harder than it. And we'll see how. So basically, I think the way that this is going to go, the UFC says they're going to fight it. Based on everything that I've digested over the past few days, it doesn't seem like they really have that strong of a case. So they might move for summary judgment, but in all likelihood, this case would get settled before it went to trial. And then according to Nash, it was, I think he mentioned it, typically it's about 20% of, the damages that they're looking for. So that would probably be something in the hundreds of millions that would get paid back to the fighters. Those 1,200 through the class action lawsuit. Now, the interesting thing though in the settlement would, because they're seeking injunctive relief, I wonder if that would be part of the settlement. So there would be some type of negotiation. But like I said earlier, in all other sports and all other cases, they have a players union. That's what these unions, they represent the fighters, right? They represent them from compensation standpoint, from a health and safety standpoint. We hear about the Players Association, the NFL, all the time. The sport's gotten big. MMA's gotten big enough where I think it's time, and maybe this will move closer to it.
Yeah, and there's been tons of other fighters that have tried to, fighters unions. Tim Kennedy is one of them. A bunch of fighters have tried to start unions and unionize, but it's never worked out because they face repercussion from the big boss, the UFC, the big scary UFC. But at this point, this may show them like, hey, if this does get paid out, if this class action lawsuit, they decided to just say F it and settle, and they disperse those funds accordingly. Maybe this will show them like, hey, we can unionize and, we don't face much as terrible of recourse. And with organizations like PFL and Bellator out there, especially like PFL doing all this like pretty big shit, their ESPN deal, like PFL would love to have you. Like, oh my gosh, his name is escaping me right now. Shane Burgos. Like, look at the media look at the machine that they put it behind Shane Burgos.
Right.
Nothing against Shane Burgos, but he's Shane Burgos. They're treating him like he's Jose Aldo, so there's other organizations. ONE FC also will take good care of you from what I hear. don't know where their money comes from. That's another topic. Yeah, this whole antitrust is going to be something that, you know, we might talk about again depending on what happens. You brought up John Nash. You guys just go look him up. Google John S. Nash. He does all the he's a big time guy when it comes to the money side. You know, the monetary side of combat sports. He can tell you definitely way more than I can. He's very well schooled in it. It's definitely cool, though, to see the fighters be able to, you know, get some sort of kickback from this. And I hope that, shit, man, we make the fighters' lives better. They're going to put on a better sport for us.
More people would probably more athletes would want to engage in it potentially.
Sure. Yeah. And
we don't want to, you know, we can't be short-sighted in this. And, all corporations want to make money, you know, but there's a point now where 20% or less of the amount of money they're making, it's time. And here's the thing, you know, a lot of this, you know, about being a monopoly, if there's one Walmart in town and everybody works at Walmart and you get paid what Walmart pays you and there's no other place to work, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? The UFC paying Walmart wages type of deal. And you know, there's no other option. In my line of work, you know, if somebody is in marketing, if someone's talented, they can move to whatever agency or corporation or wherever they want to go, whoever will pay them the most. But that's not the case in the UFC. The fighters essentially have to, if they want to be a professional fighter with the UFC, they basically have to fight for what they'll pay them, not necessarily what they're worth.
Yeah, I was watching short documentary about the mines in Appalachia and how back in the day when they used to pay the miners in money that was only good to use at their stores and their grocery stores. These are stores owned by the mines, and it's just like, you know, all right, cool, man. I'm glad we went over that. It's there. If you guys want to know more about the UFC antitrust lawsuit, go look it up. There's tons of other people that are definitely smarter than me. Probably not as smart as Greg, but smarter than me that can tell you more. All right, guys, moving on to the third segment of the show. In with the new big UFC fight card coming up this weekend. Pay-per-view main event, Aljamain Sterling versus Sugar Sean O'Malley. We're not going to talk about that to the end, so you got to listen to all this to listen to that, or you can just fast forward, but hopefully you listen. One of the four fights I'm going to break down for you guys with Greg. Yes, I said 4 instead of 3 because we only talked about 2 fights on Out with the Old, and I feel like this matters more. We got Marlon Cheeto Vera versus Pedro, the young, is it the young assassin? I believe it's young assassin. No, young. First off, he's not young anymore. Young Punisher, the assassin baby. The assassin was last weekend with Luke. Sorry, guys. The young Punisher, the 36, almost 37-year-old young Punisher. You got the odds, bro. What are the odds for this fight?
Pedro's the underdog. He's got a plus 175, and Cheeto is at minus 65. These are the best odds that I could
minus
find.
165?
Minus 176.
176. Okay, so plus, what do you have? Plus 150? Give me one more time. I'm sorry.
Munhoz is a plus 175.
Okay.
Dog. And Cheeto is a minus 176 favorite.
Cool. That makes sense.
Do you agree with those?
These are like the 2 most durable dudes in this whole division, right?
I'm getting more excited for this fight than I was.
No, this is this is a fucking real good fight. Like X's and O's, I think Pedro Munhoz is definitely, obviously, this is not X's and O's, but Pedro Munhoz is definitely the smaller guy that operates. I read a stat that 47% of the significant strikes he's landed in like the last 3 fights have all been leg kicks. Big time leg kicking dude. He likes to be in boxing range. He has good power. He's durable as shit. He will take your best shot and go forward. He has okay volume, even though that's kind of, you know, teetered down since like the Frankie Edgar fight. I think he beat Frankie Edgar. Marlon is a guy that he's a very dexterous kicker. He has really good kicks. He might have like top 5 best kicks and most variety of kicks in the UFC. And he can fight at range. He can fight in the clinch. His boxing is dangerous. His kicking is very, very dangerous. Very dangerous dude, but kind of lower volume guy. And that might not suit him well in this fight. What do you think?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a 3-round fight. He's been doing a lot of 5-round fights lately with Sandhagen. So I wanted to spin this back to you. That fight that he lost handily, Sandhagen obviously looked a lot better than that and had made a bunch of improvements. But Cheeto, like, he barely got out of first gear in that fight. I mean, it was the general consensus. Not active. That's not going to bode well if he goes into this 3-round fight like that. You know, the question I have is, you know, will he make adjustments, right? Will the filling out period be shorter? Will he know that he has to get it going and win rounds? It's hard for me to, I'm actually surprised that he's this much of a favorite, but it's hard for me to pick against Cheeto in this, only because I think he was on a good winning streak, and I think he's very tough, and he hurts people. And that's just kind of my general take on it without getting too technical. What do you, I feel like there's more momentum for Munhoz. Like, I've heard a lot of banter about Munhoz, even more so than Cheeto. What do you think?
I think Pedro has the ability to win a fight like this if he can just go and put a bunch of volume on Cheeto and not let Cheeto get going. Cheeto is a guy that will definitely sit back and make his reads. Look at his fight with Rob Font. Rob Font landed like over 100 more significant strikes, you know, on Cheeto. And Cheeto, after the fight, did not have a scratch on him. He is one of those guys where he just doesn't wear damage, like, physically and, you know, mentally, where he just takes shots. He's not, you know, mentally impacted by them, where he will get off of his game and shit. Sometimes he just like doesn't get the ball rolling until it's too late. And he's always a guy where he'll just find one shot to really, really hurt people. He doesn't look like a big, powerful dude, but he's like one of the most violent power punchers in that, power strikers really in that division. Someone like Pedro Munhoz, again, he's going to have to really get the kicks going. I think Cheeto can give him a lot of problems with his kick checking game. That's kind of, you know, what yeah, dude, you know, and that's what he did to O'Malley. Like, he goes, oh, you want to kick the kicker? Well, shit, we'll see, you know, and he ended up, you know, messing up his perennial nerve, and we all know how that went. And Pedro Munhoz, as a similar opponent, they both fought Sean O'Malley. Pedro Munhoz, 2 of the 3 judges scored the first round of his Sean O'Malley fight before he got eye poked. Of course, they never ran that back. But for Cheeto, I think he can win this fight at range if he's just really, really. One thing that we don't really talk about when it comes to Pedro, I know it just said Cheeto, but Pedro's also a high-level BJJ practitioner, and Cheeto is a willing guard player, where he will, you know, try to throw elbows like old school Tony Ferguson and try to be like violent and offensive off of his back. But in a 3-round fight, like, I could totally see Cheeto just losing around by conceding ground position and being a active guard player. I think that's kind of a sneaky key to victory for someone like Pedro Munhoz. Cheeto, though, I think he can keep this fight at range using his teep kicks, his hook kicks, really try to keep this fight at kicking range. I think he can fight Pedro Munhoz striking in every position. I think they can box in the pocket. Pedro might be a little bit faster in the pocket, but I would say that Cheeto is definitely the more durable and the harder puncher in the pocket. I think at kicking range, that's where Cheeto is going to be most effective. But even in the clinch, I could see him, you know, getting a tie clinch and kneeing. He's got a good tie clinch. And Jason Perillo seems like a guy that has helped Cheeto make all these adjustments after Timo Nama. Make these adjustments where he's like, okay, I'm confident. And I think they're going to go back to the drawing board and have a lot of volume in this fight, because Cheeto hasn't gassed. It's a 3-round fight. He needs to go out there and step on it. And he needs to not get taken down and concede ground. If he gets taken down, that's fine. He needs to get back up.
I think you nailed it. I mean, I'm just interested to see, Cheeto was on a nice winning streak, right? And then he ran into a buzz. Yeah, he ran into a buzzsaw. So this is a huge fight for him, right? He's either going to stay, what is he ranked currently? Like 6th or something like that? He's in the, he's 6 on UFC. So
and what is Pedro Munhoz? If you have him in front of you, what is Pedro Munhoz? 10?
He's 10, right?
10.
So
okay.
So this is a huge fight, I think, for Cheeto, because it's like then he lingers right up there and he starts inching his way back up, right? Whereas if he takes a loss, then they're switching positions. Now he's in the back third. He's in the back third of the rankings, and it took him all this time to get up. These types of things happen. It's a big fight, and we'll see how he responds. I think all the Cheeto fans. I mean, I remember going into that Sandhagen fight, and it was far less competitive than everybody thought that fight was going to be.
I picked Cheeto in that fight. Yeah, I thought Petroyan could hurt Sandhagen, and I thought Cheeto could too. And I still think Cheeto, with the right game plan, could go out there and have a really tight fight with someone like Sandhagen. Now that we got, wrestling Sandhagen, that could, just be a big problem for him. But, like if you look at Cheeto's record, like his fight with Davy Grant, like that was a close fight where like if he's winning by decision, he's having close fights with guys typically besides Rob Font, or he's knocking them out. I'm just curious to see if he can, repeat what he did to like Frankie Edgar with that like jumping front kick, which is awesome. I'm picking Cheeto in this fight because I think he's the younger guy. I think he's got, think he actually has another title run in him. And it seems like the UFC wanted him to fight this fight. He was actually booked. This fight was supposed to be Henry Cejudo, but Henry Cejudo pulled out with that shoulder injury. I think he actually injured it live on his YouTube show. So Pedro Munhoz is also kind of coming in on a shorter notice. I'm on Cheeto, but I see all the routes to victory for Pedro, and I think it is as close of a fight as the odds definitely portray. Who do you got?
I got Cheeto, and I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited to see how he returns after that loss.
Let's see if he gets.
I think he's going to hurt him and show his nasty, because he's got a mean streak.
All right, guys, moving on to another fight, one more notch up the card. We have Garry fighting a Neil, not a Jeff Neal, not a Colin Kaepernick Neal, but a Neil Magny. And pretty interesting fight. Neil Magny swooping in at a moment's notice to kind of save the card for the Irish fans and Garry himself. Jeff Neal stepped out, undisclosed injury of some sort. He's had a ton of health issues with like staph infection and shit. He's also had a ton of legal issues as well. So who knows if he's, facing some sort of legal recourse or if he just has a bad staph infection, or God only knows. Hopefully he's okay. Maybe something will come out. Till then, got Neil Magny. What are the odds on this, man?
Magny's the underdog, plus 330, and we've got Garry coming in as a favorite at minus 395.
Not surprised by those odds. X's and O's on a fight like this. Neil Magny is a guy that will have a 3-round, dirty, ugly clinch battle with you, and he will do it with every single person. Whatever reason, he like blows voodoo dust into their, puts something in their mouthpiece that makes them all have this fight with him. The only difference maker is the real athletes, the dudes that are actually really good. I don't want to say use him as a stepping stone, but like if you're really good at one facet of the game and you can impose your will, you can beat Neil Magny. You have someone like RDA that like took him down that has really good top control, head and arm choke, or someone like Gilbert Burns, or someone like Shavkat, or even like Santiago Ponzinibbio before he was injured and gone. Santiago Ponzinibbio was able to really pressure him, kick the legs, and find, find the power shots up top with his fast boxing and his big power. Ian Garry is a guy that he's definitely a long, lean kickboxer. I wouldn't say he's defensively porous, but he's not always the most defensively responsible. Like his Song Kenan fight, he got hurt and dropped in that fight, and he kind of went back to his corner. He was like, "Oh shit," he's like stoked on it, like what hit me, and he made his reads, and he came back and got a finish late into the fight. Stuff like that's super impressive for me. Being able to get hurt, know you got hurt, recalculate, not re-game plan, but just make your adjustments. Ian Garry's a striker, good feints. He sets up his shots really well. The way he set up the head kick on Daniel Rodriguez was like chef's kiss, beautiful. What do you think of Ian Garry? He's another one of those undefeated dudes. He was a Cage Warriors champion. There was another Irish guy that was a Cage Warriors champion too. What do you think of Ian Garry? What do you think of this fight?
So I watched the Song Kenan fight in preparation for this, watched some tape, and he got floored. He got dropped. And then to your point, but he got into a flow state like in the third round where he was looking super sharp and when he was just flowing. I was super impressed by his range. Keeps really good range and he's super fast. So I think he's going to be obviously much quicker than Magny. And I think that's what the fight is probably going to come down to, is trying not to get caught in the clinch, right? Keeping range, being way more active. I think it's probably going to go to decision, and Garry's going to win just because he's more active. That's my general feeling about it. Magny does have the ability to neutralize, as you mentioned, in all of his fights. It's just a clinch thing, two guys against the fence, against the cage.
He will out wrestle every single person he can out wrestle, and he will out clinch fight every single person that will. And someone like Phil Rowe, which is not known for that, which is Neil Magny's latest opponent, went out there and had that fight with him. Funny enough, they're almost mirror body types of each other, but for like the last week or so, Ian Garry brought in Phil Rowe to emulate him. I like that Ian Garry went down to Shooto Box. He went to Brazil for most of this fight camp for Jeff Neal. I think once he found out there was going to be a short notice replacement, he came back to Florida. He typically lives in Florida, trains out of Kill Cliff. Kill Cliff's a damn good gym. Guys like Shavkat Rakhmonov and Gilbert Burns are Kill Cliff guys. Both of those dudes have beat Neil Magny. I think that's the perfect team to come up with a game plan on short notice. Kill Cliff is a great, just a great team all around, great head coaches. I was never really an Ian Garry guy because I thought he was trying to be like Conor too much. But the more I see him be himself and, make the progressions in his game, put himself around the right people. He also brought in Chris Curtis for a portion of this camp when he was, training for Jeff Neal, another southpaw that has just really good boxing. So I think he's going to be more than prepared for this. Neil Magny is definitely taking a shot. Neil Magny is also in the rankings too. This is just a tough ask for him. I think Ian Garry's ability to time his shots and be quick and just be a young streaking fighter is what's going to lead him to victory here. I think he's going to knock him out in the third round.
Well, young streaking fighter, and look at the names that you mentioned that he brought in to train with, and where he's traveled to improve. He's really got a singular focus, and it's going to be, and it's like contender.
Charles Oliveira's camp,
right? I mean,
plus Kill Cliff, plus bringing in Chris Curtis, like that. That's just a recipe for disaster for Neil Magny when it comes to, like, he's surrounding himself with all the right people.
I think he's super focused on it. And, one thing I mentioned earlier when we were talking is, and you used the word dangerous with Magny as far as not being dangerous. I think those same, maybe some defensive openings or some defensive flaws or some openings that maybe another fighter would be able to take advantage of with Garry. I don't think Neil Magny is going to be able to take advantage of him. Take advantage of those. To
he's
the
not
point
a
where
punishing guy. Like, that's just not his game.
So
his game is not.
Those openings might not be exposed. They might be fixed in time, or they might not be exposed until he fights a better
Jeff Neal.
Yeah, Jeff Neal, exactly.
he doesn't have to worry about a violent piston of a southpaw left hand to come cracking down the pipe when he, maybe forgets to take his head off the center line after throwing a combination. Either way, it sounds like we're both on Ian Machado Garry here. If from what I'm hearing is right, you on Ian?
I'm on it.
Cool. Moving on, another notch up the card. This is a good freaking card, dude. Is it not? Like, this is actually a pretty badass card. I've
been looking forward to this for a while. I know
at least 3 weeks for me. Yeah. You talked about this a good 2-3 weeks ago. You were hyped on it. I'm hyped on it. Two more people that are probably hyped on it. One of them is defending her title. The other one is fighting for it. We have Zhang Weili versus Amanda Lemos. And in a women's strawweight title fight, this is going to be a good fight. Zhang Weili doesn't have bad fights, and neither does Amanda Lemos. What are the odds here? I bet Zhang Weili is a pretty hefty favorite.
She is. I've got her at minus 299 is the favorite, and Lemos at a plus 265 underdog.
Okay. And those odds make sense, especially if you look at who these girls have fought and who they have beaten and or lost to. However, I do think that these odds also might not actually reflect the type of matchup it truly is. And this fight could be a lot closer than we all think. I think this could have a similar picture to like Germaine de Randamie versus Amanda Nunes if Zhang Weili really wants to wrestle, because I do think striking with someone like Lemos is a potential problem for Zhang Weili. What do you think about this fight?
I'm excited to see the striking, to be honest. I think Weili, we talked about like her previous fights, right? Obviously beating Carla and then losing to Joanna, beating Joanna. Before that, losing to Rose twice in a row. So I think Lemos is in play here. I think she's dangerous. Looking at her recent fights, if it stays on I'd really like it to kind of stay on the feet, to be honest, just to see the striking. But I like Lemos in this. I think we were talking previously. Lemos fights, I remember seeing her just super athletic, throwing super hard, fast. Those are the types of things I think are going to give Zhang problems. What about you?
You look at Zhang Weili's record, and I don't want to say she got gifted a title fight, but they definitely were trying to push this Chinese market. She beat Danielle Taylor. She beat Jessica Aguilar. That one was via armbar. She beat Tisha Torres via decision. And then she got that shot against Andrade. A lot of people said it was undeserving in that moment. I might have agreed with them, but that was over in China. She knocks her out, knees and punches. Some of those strikes are to the back of the head, but I won't fight her on that because that's not my job. That's the ref's job. And then she has that crazy fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, like the best women's fight in MMA, and it probably is. I wouldn't argue against it. I think it is, where Joanna's head was,
right.
Fuck, it looked bad. And she just got touched up a lot in that fight too. The Rose knockout right after that. Rose, it's just Rose. And then the split decision loss to Rose, where she showed some good grappling. She went over and trained with Henry Cejudo for that camp, and she showed that she can wrestle and grapple. She's a big, strong, athletic fighter. After that second loss to Rose, she went and knocked out Joanna via spinning back fist. And at that point, that's when Rose and Esparza were having their terrible title fight. And then she came. And at that point, we knew, like, shit. I feel like it was the MMA community as a whole probably figured Rose is done. Her mind's not in this. And Zhang Weili is the best 115, 115er, even though Esparza is holding the belt. We all kind of knew that Esparza was just a holding place for Zhang to come back through again. When Zhang fought her, she was just beating her so badly. She wasn't even using tons of technical abilities in the grappling. She just went out there and smushed Esparza. For Lemos, you look at Lemos, and a lot of people will break down this fight and say she got ran through by Andrade. She has no chance. But if you go back, I specifically, before you and I recorded this, I sent you a message and I was like, hey man, can you watch that fight? Because it's about 3 minutes. And she was the harder striker. Has there been anyone at 115 besides Zhang Weili to shown to be able to, like, I mean, at that time, Yan Zhanan sparked Andrade, and, you know, Andrade has been not looking great as of late. But in that moment, like, she completely outstruck Andrade, wrecking her with kicks, took a head kick from her and didn't even get phased. Her jab was snapping her head back. Lemos is a really, really powerful striker. I think she's a harder puncher and a harder kicker, all around harder striker than Zhang Weili. I think she's a better puncher, a straighter puncher than Zhang Weili. I think Zhang Weili is also willing to have a brawl with every single person that will have a brawl with them. And I've really only ever seen her fight with a game plan once, and that was in her second fight with Rose, and she still lost that fight. If Zhang Weili doesn't get this fight to the ground and do it for 5 rounds straight or finish her, Zhang Weili is a known submission artist. She will submit people. Lemos did get caught. Not a lot of things in MMA are flukes, but there are Hail Marys. And the head and arm, the standing head and arm, if you make her and Andrade fight 10 times, I'm picking Lemos probably 7 of them. Especially today. The way that Andrade looked in her last fight, I would pick maybe Lemos 8. I just could see Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili gets so over her skis in her striking. She's so willing to come forward and throw combos. She's so willing to rely on her chin and take damage. Even her second fight with Weili, when she knocked her out with that spinning back fist. Like, Weili will just have a brawl with anybody. I could see Lemos out-kicking her, out-striking her, hurting her, surprising her. Weili has been hurt in fights. Rose knocked her out. I just think this is going to be, and I'm surprised. I think you're on Lemos too, but people are probably going to be surprised. The MMA community might be surprised, but you just don't. I don't think Zhang Weili has the fight IQ to avoid a brawl. And I just don't think she wants to brawl with someone like Lemos.
No, I think every fight I've watched Lemos, she's always impresses me with how hard she throws.
This is going to be the first person that Zhang Weili has fought, from what I can remember. We can look at her record. That is going to be probably the harder puncher, the bigger person, and able to match her physicality. Zhang Weili is a physical specimen, and I think Lemos can match her physicality
with strength.
The strength, explosiveness. Yeah. You know, just being able to, when they get into the clinch, just being able to shuck them the fuck off and get your offense going again, you know. Yeah. In tie-ups, I think Lemos is just going to show her that she is a lot stronger than she may think. And Zhang Weili's a really confident fighter. Confident, but not very defensively responsible again. Look at the way she was able to Lemos set up the counter on Marina Rodriguez. Man, I could see her leg kicking Weili a bunch from the outside, leg kicking her a bunch from the outside. Weili is eventually going to say, I don't want to be leg kicked anymore. Try to blitz into an attack and just get sparked for it. That's what I see happening. Like, I just see her getting hit, picked at from the outside until those kicks. You take 3, 4, 5 of those leg kicks from Lemos, and you're going to be like, I need to do something different. And then she's going to get overzealous and get sparked. That's what I see happening. I'm calling the upset.
I'm on board with you. I think
round 2 knockout, Lemos.
That's a good call. It's a good call.
She's gonna
two or 3. I think probably.
Kick her legs to bits. Zhang Weili has to wrestle in this fight. I just don't think she wants to strike with Lemos.
I don't think it's a good idea. I'd like to see. I'm looking forward to this. I mean, it's a title fight, and
it matters.
It definitely matters.
Especially like Tatiana Suarez is back,
Rose is leaving the division.
Rose is leaving the division. And there's tons of surging, 115ers. 115 is a good division. It's one of the best divisions. It's definitely the best women's division, in my opinion. And Lemos doesn't have boring fights. Neither does Zhang Weili. Either way, we're in for it. And I hope we don't get a snoozer. Highly doubt we will. All right, guys. Main event time. Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling defending his bantamweight belt against Sugar. Hate myself for saying it like that. Sugar Sean O'Malley. O'Malley, super big star. Also a pretty damn good fighter. What do you think, man? What are the odds? Tell me what you think about this fight.
We've got Aljo as a favorite at a minus 250 and O'Malley plus 220.
And that totally makes sense. I agree with those odds fully. I could even see Aljamain swelling to a larger favorite. There's a lot of clips going around of Sean O'Malley submitting like Takanori Gomi on Fight Pass. Sean O'Malley can grapple a little bit. He's not as good as a grappler as Aljamain Sterling. And you can be a good grappler, but do you specialize in backpack defense, body lock defense, and choke defense? This is going to be a really interesting fight. Both of these dudes, Aljamain Sterling is a guy that, if you look at his fight with someone like Corey Sandhagen, like that's super impressive. That was also Corey Sandhagen's, turning point. But it took him 1 minute and 28 seconds. He walked down Sandhagen, put the pressure on him, took him down, took his back, and choked him out. Aljamain has pretty janky striking, for lack of better terms, but it's effective because he knows he can throw whatever he wants and not risk being taken down. Definitely a guy that's, when you look at his striking technique, especially coming from the camp he comes with, he's never shored up any of his true striking deficiencies. And I kind of like that his camp has just built his game around what he's good at and haven't told him hey, this is where your feet need to be when you're punching. They didn't try to build him into a technical boxer. And I kind of appreciate that because he just does what he's good at. Why do we need to teach him how to throw everything technically if we're relying on his striking to do something different? And I appreciate that about his skill set. But his fight with Petr Yan right after that, one of the biggest, probably the biggest thing that happened in 2021 in MMA was his definitely beat Petr Yan in the first round, threw a bunch of volume at him, kind of gassed out, kind of started getting clipped up, kind of started counting himself out, takes the illegal knee, doesn't continue to fight. Then he comes back and gets that split decision over Petr Yan. Some people actually thought he lost that fight. It was a very close fight. Then he had the TJ Dillashaw fight where TJ came in injured. TJ's a piece of crap for that. That was not fair for any of us, especially Sterling. And then his most recent fight, Henry Cejudo. I'm on the island. I'm sure if you go to MMA Decision, there's a few of us out there. But I scored that fight for Henry Cejudo. So his whole entire title reign is full of asterisks. But yet, here he is. Sean O'Malley is a guy that, two fights ago, he was knocking out Raulian Paiva. The dude went from Chris Moutinho to Raulian Paiva. Raulian Paiva was a pretty good flyweight that had trouble making weight. The no contest with Pedro Munhoz, and then the split decision win over Petr Yan. In that moment, I was like, Petr Yan got kind of shafted here. Going back on a rewatch, Sean O'Malley did do a lot of things right in that fight and hurt Petr Yan in ways not a lot of people have until Merab came through after. And what Sean O'Malley does really well is he has great feints, good long-range tools, good boxing, good all-around striking, crazy spinning heel kicks. His offense is so varying. Keith, fellow Sherdog associate, he's a guy that's been high on Sean O'Malley, and I kind of disliked him for a long time up until semi-recently because he's actually pretty good. And I can't blame him for wanting to earn money outside of the UFC. fighters don't get paid very well. And Sean O'Malley has done a lot for himself, as his brand outside of the UFC. So shout out to him for that. He could give Aljamain Sterling problems here. In his fight with Petrion, he is one of those dudes that when he doesn't do what Rob Font does, he doesn't concede bottom position unless you really hurt him, like how he was actually, maimed in his fight against Cheeto, where he's hitting Granby rolls. Like, he has got pretty good defensive scrambles where I don't know how good his get-up game is, but hell, he acts like the floor is lava. And he even came out in an interview I heard today, and he said that he's treating it basically as such, like floor is lava, it's death. I can't get taken down by this guy. I wonder how that will impact his offense. But I could see him having success with the feints, drawing shots out of Aljamain. Aljamain hasn't fought definitely as diverse of a striker that's long and lengthy like O'Malley with all those different tools. What do you think Aljamain's got to do to win this fight? What do you think Sean O'Malley's got to do to win this fight?
I think it's an interesting fight. I think both fighters are aware of the other's strengths. Let's put it that way, right? I think Aljo is should definitely be concerned about these accurate, long-range, quick strikes and the power that O'Malley has, because he does possess a lot of power. And obviously O'Malley, doesn't want to get taken down. Aljo's won these fights. You made a great point about just the way that he trains, and he's really good at what he does. O'Malley's really good at what he does. I wonder if Aljo is going to have, I'd like him to stay true, to who he is in his game plan. I think he could run into problems if he gets some type of like a false confidence or a confidence in his striking, and he tries to stand with them. I think he needs to stick with the game plan and just get him down as soon as possible, early and often, and hold him there. And go ahead.
No, one thing I like about Aljamain too is you're not going to sucker Aljo into a brawl. You're not going to sucker him. You're not going to bitch him into fighting a fight. You're not going to get him into a pissing contest. You're not going to get him into a dick measuring contest. He wants to go out there and out wrestle you. He wants to backpack you. He wants to rear naked choke you. That's his game. He knows that's what he's good at. And I like that a guy that will stick to his guns. Like, I like that about him. You don't see him get forced into these weird brawls. You have seen him hurt, like the Marlon Moraes knee, hurt him, but he fought well. Even like he struck well against Pedro Munhoz. I don't think he can have the Pedro Munhoz fight with someone like Sean O'Malley. I think he'll get effed up if he does. But Aljamain does have, pretty good kicks, good body kicks, good head kicks. He throws his kicks. He spams his kicks, knowing that he just can't get taken down. A guy like Sean O'Malley, though, being as long and as lengthy, he might be one of the only guys that can, time counter punches, countering Aljamain's kicks. And that's something that, he comes from a great camp. I think the Sarah Longo camp, Ray Longo and those guys over there, I think that's like one of the best game planning camps in MMA, just outright. I mean, look at like Merab, for example. Look what he did to Petrion, like stuff like that. Even Chris Weidman is an OG from that camp. Look at Matt Frevola, the way that Matt Frevola, knocked out Otman Azaitar. Those guys could build a good game plan. So I think his game plan will be to not bite on feints, not get hit with attacks up the middle, just crush the distance between them, force him against the cage, chain wrestle him, force him to give his back. And that's what Aljo wants to do. Like, he'll take you down, allow you to get up, force you to take your back. If he can't choke you, he will body triangle you and chip away with little shots for 5 rounds. If he has to do that, he will. And I don't think he's going to get broken from that. There are routes to victory for Sean O'Malley here.
Yeah.
There really are. Aljamain can get touched. He's not the most defensively sound dude. Sean O'Malley's dangerous. And again, looking through Sterling's record, there have been guys that have been able to touch him up. If Petrion can put hands on him, I don't see why Sean O'Malley couldn't. But I'm on Aljo here. I hope he sticks to his guns. You're talking about sticking to your guns. Do you think he's going to actually leave? He said, I think it was an interview that got released today. This is Monday, recording this the 14th, where he said that regardless of the outcome of this fight, he's going to featherweight and he wants to give Merab a chance. You think if he gets violently knocked out, he still stands by that?
I don't think anything. I think a lot of thought has gone into that. So possibly, but you know how this is. It's nothing's ever guaranteed. I think going into this fight, you were talking about not, concern of like knowing what he's good at and sticking with it. I think there's a lot of emotion, or I'm wondering about the emotion in this. I feel like, Aljo, he kind of feels disrespected, or at least that's what he's led on. I haven't heard recent interviews about him, but I know, or from him, but I know that, he didn't want to fight right away. He didn't really want this fight this soon after fighting Cejudo. He had mentioned that he was needed some time to heal some injuries and things like that. And then it seems like the UFC is definitely like made a path for Sean O'Malley to be a champion, right? And it's giving the champ extra month or two to get right to defend the belt. Didn't seem to be in the cards. It was more like, okay, O'Malley's ready. Let's get him up there. So I think Aljo feels probably disrespected from that, and I wonder if that emotion is going to be a driving force, or if it's going to be a distraction, and he's going to be emotional. What do you think?
I think there's no way he's going to face any more emotional distress compared to what he faced in between the two Petrion fights.
Right.
And the way he came out and imposed his will and stuck to his game plan against Petrion in the second fight, I just don't like. He just doesn't seem to be a dude that, again, he wants to take people down. He wants to control them. And that's his, when Nate Diaz touches someone and he gives him the bird, that's Aljamain's thing. That's his, when he's taking you down and he's taking your back, he's sticking it to you. And I think that's him also sticking it to the UFC. So I think that's how he gets his get back. No pun intended. I think that's his thing.
So let me ask you something, Dev. What about for O'Malley? Because remember when he fought Petrion, what was he ranked at the time? O'Malley was
he was way down, like 12 or something.
Yeah, and everybody's like, what? This is like
he proved he deserved it.
He proved he deserved it, although it was a super close fight.
Yeah.
But he definitely showed up for that. And after that fight, I feel like I've referenced a lot of post-fight interviews, but I think it's important, especially like in the heat of the moment, right? After that fight, he said that was like the hardest fight that he'd ever had.
He thought he lost.
Right. And he said he'd been to depths he'd never been. I think Aljo has been fighting at those depths like for a while now. He's been swimming
in the deep end for a long time. And O'Malley tripped and fell in, and he treaded water. But
O'Malley seems to have actually have his head in check. Like he seems to have like a good way about him in terms of like dealing with pressure. And I think he compartmentalizes that. And I say that because he definitely shows out, right? And you have to have a strong mental game to perform at that level in front of the bright lights and tell everybody you're going to do it and then do it. And I think for the most part, he does that. Do you think that there's, I feel like there's way more pressure on O'Malley, regardless of everything. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on O'Malley. Whether it matters, who knows? But in terms of fighting free or approaching this that way, I feel like there's a lot riding on this for him because in some sense he's, this path.
He's been chauffeured all the way to this title shot. However, I would say there's, a lot of pressure on both guys because again, I'm picking through Aljamain's, championship run and illegal knee to Petrion, arguably lost the second fight to Petrion, the TJ Dillashaw issue with TJ's shoulder, and then the split decision that some people argued he lost against. He doesn't have a clean how their wins, but there are arguments for every single one of his championship fights. He needs to go out there and solidify that he is the best bantamweight ever. He can do that with a dominant finish over Sean O'Malley. That will kind of erase all the other close fights, all the other asterisks. The more dominant he looks, the more we forget about the first Petr fight. And then for O'Malley, again, I agree with you too. He's got just so much going on for his stardom and so much going on outside of the octagon as far as becoming a big star. This kid came from Helena, Montana.
Right. This
is a big, big life change compared to what he grew up and the people he's typically surrounded himself as growing up and stuff like that. So this is just a big weight on both of their shoulders, especially Aljamain wanting to leave. He needs to, sign the check here on this one, for lack of better terms. I think he needs to go out there and try to finish Sean O'Malley. Seems like we're both on O'Malley here. This whole card is pretty good. Like I would sit here and talk about it all night if I could, if there was enough time allotted. But one of my favorite women fighters, she's on this card, Natalia Silva, women's 125. She's fighting Andrea Lee. Freaking Ultimate Fighter finales are on this. Kurt Holobaugh versus Austin Hubbard. Go watch Kurt Holobaugh's fight, his semifinal for the Ultimate Fighter. Violent against Jason Knight. I don't know if you've seen it, dude, but like they're not coaching, and there's no coaches or anything because they're both from Michael Chandler's team, and like the punches, like you hear the impact. It's violent. There's just a lot of good fights. Hobocop's fighting Dennis Tululin. That's going to be a freaking banger. Gerald Meerschaert's back. Ton of great fights on this card. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks, Greg, for joining me today and tonight. I know it's late for you, so I really appreciate it. Any last words before we get out of here?
Thanks for having me. Sorry about my hair. And lastly, I'm on Aljo for I've got Aljo on this. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Aljo. I thought you said Aljo as well. Badass fights. I'll be back on Tuesday next week to recap this one and talk about the next coming fight, which is that Max Holloway over in Singapore. Sherdog does a lot of cool stuff in between now and then. Tons of other shows. I highly suggest you guys go to Sherdog and listen to their post-fight show. I'll be in the live chat. Greg might be there. Tons of other listeners are there. Ben and Keith do that show. It's a great show. Till next Tuesday, enjoy the fights, guys.